You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. And welcome into Sox in the Basement. My name is Chris. His name is Ed. Bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. And we got 30 minutes of Sox talk for you. And that's all we do. We just sit around and talk White Sox baseball. And it's all brought to you by Family Waterproofing Solutions. You see that logo right there on our logo. And whatever podcast player that you're using, the phone number's there. They'll take care of any of your foundational needs. This is the time of year when, the pipes swell. And then maybe they break. Or maybe something's going on with the walls. Or maybe you're seeing some foundational issues. Or maybe you just want to make sure that when the snow melts, when this is all over and the ground thaws, you don't have water in the basement. It's a free estimate, and they take money off if you mention Sox in the Basement, FAMWS.com. We have a treat today for the next 30 minutes, Ed.
Yes, we do.
They cannot join us at the bar as they did last year, but this is the official 108 Sox in the Basement crossover episode. Welcome, boys. My Sox Summer, Chirizi E, Beef Loaf, the most famous section in the ballpark is in the house tonight. How are you?
Hey, man, I tell you, I was doing good until I heard that ad read and thought about how shitty mine's gonna be in an hour and a half when we're doing our show, and it's way at the end, and I have just tiny little notes written that I'm gonna stumble all over. I really feel demoralized right now, so I might just go on mute for a while, guys.
That's awesome.
Old Hawk Harrelson just sit here in silence.
I'm happy that Chirizi's going to be the first one beeped on the podcast because he dropped the S-bomb.
He did.
He's going to be the first one beeped on the podcast, which is usually, and Ed, I know you're not used to this, but I'm the one that usually gets cut out of the entire podcast because I swear the entire time. So, Chris doesn't like me in that regard. So, but yeah, I love this.
People will remember that during the season, we did the irrational thoughts or something, talk me out of an irrational thought. I can't remember what I called it, but you would come on
have an irrational argument.
An irrational argument. That's right. Yeah. And you would come on and you would do it with me. And the best part about it is that you would talk for maybe 10 minutes and I would have about 3.5 minutes that I could use.
Pretty much.
And I still had to bleep some of it, but some of your answers were just a string of expletives. Like I was in a Rick and Morty episode. It was insane.
It was bad. Hey, let's say hello to Beef Loaf first, but then I have to yell at you. So let's talk to Beef Loaf.
Wow, you guys came on my show to yell at me. This is great. All right.
It's about time.
These guys didn't, but I did.
All right, Beef Loaf. How are you?
Chris, good to see you, buddy. I mean, I got a couple treat things for you. One, thanks so much for coming on our Festivus show. For those people that don't know, we did a show right before Christmas. It's about 4.5 hours long. Chris joined us for, about 45 minutes, and we just talked some mess throughout that, so really appreciate it. Number two, I noticed there's a guy here called Ed who I've never met, and Dave is nowhere to be found. So can you explain a little bit? What's going on here?
They're doing this on my show. This is great. Yeah. All right, so this will be fun. All right.
I am the anti-Dave.
Yeah, he is the anti-Dave. All right, so here, I'll explain to everybody. I knew it would have to be these guys coming on for me to explain what happened to Dave, so I'll explain what happened to Dave.
We might as well.
On Sox in the Basement here, and then I'll introduce Ed, because Ed's been on the show now for the last couple of weeks, and he's been doing a wonderful job.
Let me give you an intro to it.
Right.
Previously on Sox in the Basement.
Right. Okay, so what happens is, here's the thing. Dave has been my friend since the beginning. He grew up across the street from me. We're separated by about 6 or 7 months in age. And that's it. I'm the older of the two of us. And we grew up across the street from each other. We've been lifelong friends. I gave the speech. I was his best man at his wedding. And, we came up with the idea of doing the show while we were sitting down here at the bar one night. And everybody kind of knows that story. We've talked about it. The thing about my friend Dave is that he goes through phases where he locks in on one thing, and then he can't do anything else except for that one thing. So I would say about 4 or 5 months ago, Dave got really into Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not making this up. He got so into Dungeons and Dragons that he dressed for Halloween as an obscure Dungeons and Dragons character, and then had to spend the entire party explaining to people what character he was, because nobody knew what he was. And then
he's a LARPer,
right? And then he took a room in his in his house, he and his wife, they have no kids. He takes one of the rooms that would have been used maybe for a kid or like an office or whatever, and he just turns it into a Dungeons and Dragons studio. This is complete with shelves, giant boards that he crafts. He makes his own boards with a 3D printer. He makes characters with it. He paints everything, and it becomes this incredible obsession. According to his wife, Hannah, he has not picked up his guitar to play for fun for about 6 months because he's been so into Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
He doesn't go anywhere. This is like a lockdown thing that happened to him. And the only thing he was doing that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons related was the podcast because he didn't have the heart. He couldn't bring himself to tell me that he wanted to spend 100% of his waking hours playing Dungeons and Dragons. So when the Tony La Russa hire came along, I think he used it as an excuse. That was real when he blew up. In fact, the original blow up was on my cell phone and he lost it and he was screaming and he was yelling and everything else. And then he's like, I'm not coming on. And I had to beg him, like, you can't just leave the show without an explanation. Like, you have to at least come on and express these feelings. So he did for 45 minutes, which I cut down to about 5 because it was a little excessive. Like, how many times can you call Tony La Russa a name? And and what's funny is that he probably loved Tony La Russa as a kid. And I keep laughing at him. I'm like, so you've given up the White Sox when we might go out and win 100 games this year. We might be a 90-win team and go deep into the postseason. And you've been waiting for this entire time. But I really think deep down, this was all a giant excuse to make more orcs and paint dragons. And he holds a Dungeons and Dragons game nearly every day. He has 5 different games. He never plays himself. He just likes being the dungeon master. So he has a Dungeons and Dragons god complex and no longer has time to do the podcast. He was at my house last night. He showed up. We exchanged Christmas gifts like we do every year. He buys them for the kids. He's my son's godfather. He got a Dungeons and Dragons shirt from me. He lost his mind over it. He was super excited. He had 2 drinks and he left his wife behind to drive herself home in her car because he had to go home and paint something. So and that was the first time he had done anything with us in like weeks. So this is something weird is going on. Hopefully it doesn't end up on the 5 o'clock news one day. Like, man loses his mind, dresses as a wizard, and runs through the neighborhood, pantsless, firing off a shotgun. I'm hoping this is just a weird little obsession and he gets over it one day. But that's what happened to Dave. Are there any questions at this point? Like, I felt like I had to get this all off my chest because I've been holding this in, and you guys brought it out of me.
It's a story as old as time to be.
Well, I wanted to jump in, Chris, just for a second. I want to confer with my 108ers, Teresi and my Sock Summer. I got a question for you guys after we heard all of that. Okay?
Yeah.
We've known Chris for a little bit. We've worked together on some stuff. We've hung out and just got drunk. I have a question for you guys. Do you think that was the truth or an elaborate lie that Chris made up right this second?
I'm 50-50 to be honest. Wow. I think Chris has told a big story, but I'm not sure. I know that he's good at doing that, but the mystery is what keeps me coming back.
You guys know Chris really, really well. You know Chris really, really well.
Yeah, it's not a lie. In fact, you can go back into the Twitter feed. I know people do this and they find tweets from 5 years ago. There was a steady string on the Sox in the Basement Twitter feed at one point when Dave first got into the Dungeons and Dragons. And then there's pictures one night where I'm like he's trying to, he was playing in his Sox hat and I was like, oh, we're 108ing. We hashtagged it and he's sitting there as the dungeon master. So this would be one heck of an elaborate lie for me to set it up a while ago just to get to this point. I would have to be pretty crafty to come up with that. So, but believe what you want. Meanwhile, let's introduce Ed to everybody. I kind of introduced them already to the listeners, but I'll introduce them to you guys. I met Ed at the University of Illinois, and about the first radio station I went to work for, WPGU, which was a commercial station, and they gave me a late night, overnight, weekend show that went from 2 to 6 in the morning, and Ed was dumb enough to become my producer/engineer on that show. And then he was so much fun to hang out with in the middle of the night. When I went to mornings, he became my morning show producer. And then we went, and he was the guy who came into the studio when the ratings came out and said, guess what? You're number 1. And I thought he was making fun of me on the air. And he read the ratings book out. He was so excited. And then
that's true.
After that was over, Ed was rewarded by the station and actually hired to be my boss. And for a while it was my program director. So we have had a relationship with each other and we've been friends. We're over 2 decades. We've been longtime friends. He's
25 years, something like that.
25 years, and he's a huge White Sox fan, and he also was on my original podcast that I started back in 2008, the Broadcast Basement, which later became the whole reason that Sox in the Basement was born. So he has actually been around for, like, he was there the night that the song was recorded that plays at the end of the show, and he's been around helping me, and he's got a background in a lot of different things, like technically, so he's always been in the background helping out with stuff. You just haven't heard him. And then the other thing is that Ed serves as my attorney. So when the White Sox finally get around to suing me because they get tired of me picking on Jerry Reinsdorf and find a reason to come after me, Ed will be the one defending me. So that's everything.
I'm on the show now, so they'll name me as a co-defendant, which knocks me right out.
Wait, now I got to pay for a lawyer? This is insane.
I got friends. I know people. We'll be fine.
Right. Listen,
that's who it is. Yeah,
you're not gonna get sued. You're not that special, Chris. I know, like you like to pretend that, like, you know, like the Sox are after you. They're gonna get you, but they're not. No. Like, if you haven't noticed, our logo is the exact copy of a Sox logo with like 3 changes because legally that's what you have to do.
Yeah, but Brooks Boyer's like your cousin or something, isn't he? I mean, isn't Brooks like your cousin? Or
he's the guy.
He's my cousin.
3 of my kids.
You know, I get muscle aches all the time. I've gone from being able to do whatever I want to and not feeling any pain to basically getting pain for any kind of physical activity. Good news, there's a local family-owned Southside business that provides a CBD topical that will not break the bank. Creaky Bone Balm offers concentrated relief for creaky bones. It is an effective hemp-based CBD in a rejuvenating balm. And guess what? It's made in small batches, always free of preservatives, and all natural ingredients. It's great for muscle aches, tension, inflammation, joint pain. You can even use it for skin ailments like burns and dry, cracked skin. Right now, go to creakybone.com and use the promo code BASEMENT. Get 20% off your order. Whether it's physical activity or off-season stress, Creaky Bone's gonna help you out. Use that promo code BASEMENT, 20% off your order right now at creakybone.com. I wanted to kind of get into some Sox talk with you guys, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
And one of the things,
why start now?
If people don't know exactly who the 108 is, you've been listening for a while, completely confused. That's a section on the lower level in the park at Guaranteed Rate. I almost call it Comiskey Park because
field.
They're in right field. All right, and they are sitting out there at the corner. It's one of those little half sections, and it is. I want to say it's the first section in the foul territory, right? Because the pole's in front of you.
Partially.
Yeah.
It depends on how you're leaning.
It started as like a grassroots cult fan thing where people go and hang out, and they were all over Twitter. It's grown into an empire, and they had to hurt more than anybody that they couldn't be at the ballpark in 2020. So the first question I want to ask them is, how confident are you guys you're going to get back to your section and this year? And are you ready to go? Like, if they told you the seats are available opening day, you got to have these couple restrictions, but we'll let you in. Is the 108 returning as soon as they allow them into the ballpark?
So I can go first. I should
like tell people who it is, because I can see you on the screen tonight. But Chirizi, are you going to be going right back in?
So it's going to depend. It's going to depend. So obviously if I get the vaccine or something, which I won't because I am not a doctor.
You just play one.
Like as soon as they let me get it, I will get it. But I don't think that that's anytime soon. But what we were talking about at home was, I think I would be able to go and be safe and do all the right things. But the question is, like, what's the park going to be like? Because normally when we're in the park, tons of people come over, like whoever's at the game comes and says hello. And that's probably not going to be a great thing. I don't want like kind of everybody that I have no idea what they've been doing coming down to the section and being like, hey, what's up? And hugging and kissing. Like it's different now. So I think that's where my hesitation is, and just really understanding how it's going to all work, what the restrictions are going to be, how the park will be for me to go back into it. But I'll tell you what, man, I absolutely miss it. It's crushing to not be in there. I mean, and having a season where there was not only playoffs, but also like a no-hitter that season is just like the most deflating thing I can think of.
Yeah, that has to be hard. And one of the things that we brought up on this show, Ed and I were talking about it, was that it's going to be a while before they get to my age group. But the thing is, on the other hand, I talked to a doctor friend of mine last night, and he was like, once they give this thing out to the people that are 65 and old, which is like the next group, it's like once they start giving it out to the 60-year-olds and older, you're going to see a whole different picture of this thing in 2 months, because it's going to look very different, because that's one of the reasons why we're all so safe, because we just don't want it to spread and hurt those that are in the worst shape possible. If they can get to the people, if they can get it to the people with the pre-existing conditions, they can get it to the older people, this will look like a very different thing. So that's why I think outdoors, after what NFL did, they'll probably, and they're itching to, because they're already crying poor. So they don't want to say, they're going to be, if they don't play all the games or try to prorate the salaries, the union's going to lose it. We're so close to a CBA. So I expect they're going to do everything they can to get people in the ballpark. Beefalo, if you get the chance to walk in, what's your feeling? Are you ready to walk in there right now, or what?
What's funny is like risk categories, I'm probably the worst out of the three of us, because I have asthma. And so I have like the most downside of potential. But as of right now, I am feeling more and more confident that a combination of a lot of people are going to have the vaccine, and people are going to be pretty used to the procedures of just living life with this thing, that I'm feeling more and more safe as we go along. I went to the bank for the first time like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
I hadn't been in a bank since the start of any of this stuff. Like, that's how locked down I've been. But you see it. Everyone kind of understands, here's the protocol, here's what we're going to do. We're going to distance. We're going to get masks. We're going to be okay. So I have less of a fear. I mean, Treasy's right. People do come down to the section and they want to smell us, Chris. I mean, you can't get the full 108 experience unless you could smell the 108.
So let's be honest. My wife sat down right next to you the first night that we met, and I could tell her. She was leaning in and trying to get a whiff. So, yeah.
Very Joe Biden feel from her, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm feeling more and more confident that it's possible. My guess is a little bit of delay on the season, and then open up like kind of partial in these parts. And I think the 108ers will be out there a little bit spread out. And then hopefully by the summer, we got enough vaccine floating around and enough good weather, and that we're kind of almost fully in there. It'll be great.
My Sox summer, I would think that you guys are going to benefit a lot from a partially open stadium, because I would think the Sox are going to want to show as much normalcy as possible. And they may every game be like, and here's the 108 sitting out here. We at least let these guys in. Like, they might only let in 50 people, but they might let you three come in and give Benetti something to talk about. Like, you guys might be superstars here at the beginning, be even bigger than you are right now as a feature piece. They can only talk about the same things over and over again. They're going to want to be showing you guys a lot, I would think, right?
I was talking to my kid's godfather, Brooks Boyer, today, and he said, we will put you directly behind home plate. We'll put you wherever. But I said, you know what? We want to be in section 108 because that's our brand and that's how we're doing it.
Right. No, Then you tell him, but that Chris Lanuti wants to sit behind home plate. And he's like, who?
Nah.
Like, that's exactly how that conversation goes.
Well, it'll be easier to serve you there.
I said 500 level for Chris Lanuti and the Sox in the Basement guys. Like, I don't want them in 300 level. I don't want them getting that mac and cheese brisket sandwich. I want them in 500, where they might have something open, they might not. So that's where I put you. But you're going to be in the park, Chris. So don't worry about it. You're there.
I'd sit in the upper corner just to get in there.
Right. No kidding.
Right.
I'll echo these guys' segments. I'm sorry, Ed. You're new, so hold on a second. Let me talk. That was 100% a joke. I'm just looking at Ed in the camera, and he could probably kick my butt. So I'm just gonna let it go. And notice I said "but" and not ASS, so I don't get like bleeped, and you have to cut me out of this podcast too. I'm ready to go back, but I want everybody to be doing what I want to be doing, is wearing the mask, washing your hands, doing that stuff like that. And I think that's what it is. I've been out in the public, Chris, like I've been out there doing my thing, but I also wear a mask and I wash my hands. So like, I was crazy about washing my hands even before this started. So like, this is just the next step. So I want to get back. I want to see good baseball. And I'm hoping that our guy, White Sox Dave, is right, where he says, season ticket holders will be let in. So, like, it was definitely worth the renewal just to make sure that potentially would happen.
Right, yeah. You better buy season tickets so you're not letting you into the ballpark at the beginning. I guarantee.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to roll that money over just in case.
Sox in the Basement listeners, do the hard work. And if you're a hardworking man or woman on the South Side, you need to be outfitted properly. And that's why you should visit Red Wing Shoes in Evergreen Park, New Lenox, and Geneva. A work boots specialty store that carries sizes from 6 to 16 and feet as wide as 4E. A 115-year-old company that came out of Red Wing, Minnesota. And one of its largest stores in the entire Midwest is in Evergreen Park, Illinois, ever since 1976. When you're on your feet, the footwear is everything. So why not get an expert fitting? They warranty, repair, and offer free conditioning with laces. And they also carry Carhartt work clothing as well. Located at 3347 West 95th Street in Evergreen Park, Illinois, at 208 East Maple Street on Route 30 in New Lenox, or at 1749 South Randall Road in Geneva. Visit them today. You work hard. You've earned it. Red Wing Shoes. We have a new manager. We have a new pitching coach that I'm just enamored with. Every time I read something about him, I just read something today where he's talking about how they're working with Reynaldo Lopez, and he's changed the way that how he's delivering.
His arm angle is
this is the guy that
now.
fixed Lucas Giolito. Everybody always downplays that, but he made Lucas Giolito a star. And I'm fascinated as to whether or not this is going to be the guy with the magic touch. And I'm really looking forward to that. I don't feel as though Tony La Russa is going to be a detriment to this team. I think he's actually going to do a pretty good job. And I was surprised by the hire, but the only thing that made me upset was I didn't feel like Rick Hahn got to pick his guy. That was the only thing that bothered me. But I think Tony La Russa will do good. But looking at the roster right now, there are definitely some holes. But worst case scenario, they don't go out and do anything else and add any more bats. Have you guys started to form in your minds the kind of everyday roster you'd like to see, or everyday lineup you'd like to see the team go with? Last year, there was such a big part of people's complaints. They didn't like Renteria's lineups. I hated Renteria's lineups. We looked through every lineup over every game and figured out how many games that he cost the White Sox with his lineups. But have you guys even thought, like, I would like to see this guy moved up. I'd like to see this type of lineup. Has that crossed any of your minds yet as you get ready for the season?
Yeah, Chris, this is Beefloaf. Absolutely. I mean, and not to snitch on you, but I listened to a bunch of those shows back then, and you were advocating for Jose Abreu to hit like seventh against right-handed pitchers.
That was at the beginning of the season.
A little bit off there. So as much as you didn't like Ricky's lineups, I think it's like the third or fourth best offense in the baseball. I think we're okay. Not too bad. Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and the focal point for me, I did have one big complaint about Renteria's lineups in general, especially as we got towards the end of the season and we started to figure out what Nicky Madrigal was. I have felt like Nicky Madrigal was a waste in the 9 spot because he does two things extremely well that you think you could deploy somewhere else instead of hitting him last. Number one, he gets on base, okay? High on base percentage. Usually you want to put them guys kind of up towards the top of the lineup. Number two, he makes contact almost all the time. And that's rare in current baseball. So I always thought, like, why are they hitting this guy ninth? There's no one ever on base. You're getting on the least amount of plate appearances, even though he's a high on base percentage guy. So one of the first things that I would do, I don't know that I would lead Nicky Madrigal off because I think you kind of have a leadoff hitter already. And I don't want to upset the apple cart. But I'm moving Nick Madrigal kind of up in this lineup a little bit.
Would you bat him second? Do you think he'd be a good two-hitter?
He's got
because
be.
Think about what Tadahito Iguchi did for the team just to appeal to everybody's lust for 2005. Like, he came up and he was the kind of guy that understood, like, I got to put the ball over here. It was base hits and advancing and getting on base so that you get to the heart of that lineup. He knew when the leadoff hitter wasn't on that it was his job to get on it, but Podsednik didn't get on. If he had Podsednik on, his job was to move him. And he seemed to really understand that. I could see a Madrigal being that kind of a hitter in your 2 spot, although you do get a little, there's a part of me that goes, Luis Robert batting 2 with all that speed behind Tim Anderson, that would just be insane to watch.
But speed is overrated in the 2-hitter. Because unless he's getting on because the leadoff hitter didn't get on, then, all you're doing is just basically putting him there to try and get on and be clogged up if Anderson doesn't advance further than he needs to. So Madrigal's a perfect guy because he's going to move him over. And frankly, I don't think we want Madrigal doing a whole hell of a lot on the bases because his arm's going to fall off if he slaps it down on the ground that hard.
Somebody needs to teach him how to slide. Somebody needs to teach him how to slide, and somebody needs to teach him how to recognize when to go and when not to go. He is an atrocious base runner, a la Aaron Rowan in the playoffs. That he is right in that line right there.
I agree with Ed, and I'm also going to go one step further, Chris. I'm going to say he needs to pay attention to his third base coach and his first base coach. Like, don't just decide when you want to do it and when you don't want to do it. You look at those guys. Those guys, that's their job. Like, let them do it. Like, you f***ed up enough last year. Just look at your guys.
Yes.
That's okay. Well, you're using the bleep button today. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it, okay? But you're right. I get that. You know what I wonder about him is that was he... Like, because he was such a prolific hitter, and when he was in college, he had some big moments. Did he become the kind of guy that had like carte blanche when he was in college, and then he gets to the pros, and guess what? Everybody's a lot better than they were in college, and he's got to learn that. You know what? That guy's going to gun you down. You need to look at your coach. I felt like there were a lot of dumb rookie moves, and that was one of the things that I liked about Ricky Renteria because it seemed like he was always a teaching coach. I think a Tony La Russa sees Nick Madrigal do that, and he won't see the field for 3 days. He's more of a punishment coach. That's kind of what I think. What do you think, Chirizi?
My thought is that they have to add someone, and I'll tell you why. Because right now, if I'm looking at the lineup and I'm building the lineup, I'm DHing Eloy every day, and that means that I'm also playing either Adam Engel or Lurie Garcia every day in the outfield, and I don't want to do that. That just sounds awful to me.
Adam Engel and Larry Garcia don't want to do that either.
And when Adam Eaton gets hurt,
which he will,
which is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
In spring training.
You're playing Engel and Lurie. And I don't want to see that. That's just going to... That's upsetting to me. Yeah. Now, we'd have a fantastic DH. We'd finally have solved the DH problem. but we're not playing in like Oakland. We don't need that outfield. We need some guys that can mash in the outfield. And and that's kind of my biggest gripe here. Although, you were talking about Luis Robert moving him up in the lineup, moving him to like the 2 spot or higher, or not higher, but
now I'm giving TA's the leadoff hitter. He's proved himself. He's got to have that.
The problem I have with that is like he's got so much swing and miss that like you don't want that guy in the 2 spot. He's kind of the opposite of the guy that's going to move the guy over. He's the guy that might hit a home run, and that would be awesome. Or he might hit a liner that's a double. Those are good things, but there's so much strikeout there. I want him to be lower in the lineup. Get that figured out. The same way they did it with Timmy. Like Timmy was, people were complaining, why is this guy hitting 6th? And it's like, well, because he can't hit off-speed pitches. And they let him learn how to do that. And he did, and they moved him up. I would love in a couple of years if we're like, man, we got to move Moncada to like the 5 spot because there's so many good hitters in front of him that need to be there. That would be fine with me. But I don't think we're at that spot right now. And so I think you've either got to go Nicky Mads at the 2 spot, or you've got to go Moncada there. And I'm not ready to do Grandal there. I'd rather keep him a little bit down too. He's a great hitter, but like I don't think of him as like a number 2 hitter.
Yeah, I think Moncada's going to recover and be a much better player this year. And if you have him in the 2 spot, that's not the worst thing in the world to have. But you guys are right. The point about Madrigal, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't really considered very much the idea of batting him 2, but now you've sold me on it, and I'll talk about it on Sox and Basement for the next couple of months and make it my own idea and claim that I came up with it.
You're welcome. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm apprehensive about hitting him 2. I kind of like him hitting 1, or I like him hitting maybe 6th or something, because having the bat to ball skills like that with runners on base feels great, but it feels less great when he's hitting 2nd, Anderson's on 1st, and he's hitting like 60% ground balls. Like we saw a little taste of it last year. He might be fast, but he ain't. I don't run into ground ball double plays fast.
Right.
So like you have some risks there that you wouldn't have kind of in other spots potentially for Madrigal. Can I, Chris? Do we have a second for me to push back on Trees and his DH thoughts here?
Go for it, man. I'm on one here. Let's listen to these 2 guys fight. They're brothers, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that.
Brothers.
They're brothers. And so now they're going to have a brother fight right here on Sox in the Basement. Go for it.
We got to do it. We have to do it. Treasy, okay, I get it. You want to put Eloy, but we're not putting Eloy because I can't look at Adam Engel play every day. I know everyone loves Adam Engel, and I like Adam Engel in small doses too. Okay, it's like I drink Amaretto a little bit, but not every day. Okay?
If you give me Zach Collins, I'm gonna be so upset. I'm gonna be
Zach Collins at DH. Okay, Zach Collins at DH in the 8-hole, and here's what we're doing. All right,
He just got up and left. That's awesome.
Treasy, come back. You're gonna like this idea. Okay,
Got up and walked away from his microphone.
Left.
You and I do not believe in Zach Collins. Correct? We're not fans of Zach Collins.
Like, I don't believe in him. Like, I don't believe he exists. That's how much I don't believe in him.
Okay, I'm not quite there. I think it's possible he becomes a good hitter, but I don't think it's likely. But you throw him out there, you give him 2 months, let him hit in the DH, and then you know for sure this guy is good or no good, and you can throw him out. Right now, there's still a little bit of ambiguity, and they still kind of like have him hanging around. If you realize he stinks, you can park him permanently at AAA and move on from him, right? But you can't kind of do it unless you look at him. I don't want to look at him in a pennant race. Let's look at him in April and May and see what he's got. This offense is pretty good. No one will be hurt yet, hopefully. I mean, except for Adam Eaton, as Ed said. They're very likely he'll be hurt right out of the gate.
He
but
might
let's
be
just
hurt
take
now.
a look. Can we get a little look at him, Tree?
Chris, can I say something really quickly?
Go for it. It's your show, guys.
Back to our original, back to your original question about being in the park. Yeah. I absolutely need to be in the park now with Beef. So when Zach Collins is basically Yonder Alonso, I can punch Beef in the junk, right? Because that's what he deserves for this idea.
Another thing that kind of came to mind here because of the Adam Eaton comments. Now, we've already touched it on this show, and I'm willing to give him a chance that maybe he's matured a little bit. Scott Merkin was on the show a few episodes ago. It was like, he's had kids, he's matured a little bit. I think he'll do better and everything. I don't know if I believe that, but I am curious. You guys come up with amazing merchandise all the time. In fact, plug it, My Sox Summer. You sell a ton of stuff. Where do they go? Where do they go to go buy all these things that just say 108 on them?
Hey, you know what I do? This is what I do.
How much a cut does your kid's godfather Brooks get out of that? That's what I want to know. I have a story for that, but I'm not going to I will get into it. Rick Hahn said to us, he's like, hey, I have heard of you guys, and this was 2016, so he was a flat lie, a lie, 100% lie that he said that he'd heard of us. And he said, and we're still waiting for that check, because of all your merchandise. And I was like, okay, buddy. Like I said, once we make money,
we're the reason we don't have Bauer right now.
Right.
Exactly. We're holding on.
108
Cut the check already, guys.
I go, once we make money, we will send you some money. And so when we do that, we'll definitely do that. But from the 108.com, just go check it out. Then you can hit our merch shop on the side. We have a lot of stuff. Now, Eaton, what are you hitting at?
Okay,
Chris?
so here's my thing. I'm wondering, is there going to be a merch like the Drake LaRoche 108 section or something really funny?
No.
Will there be a jab, especially if he comes out and he has a bad season or starts acting like an ass? Like if he does the 108 out where he's going to be playing baseball do something funny? That's
Chris, we honestly cannot talk about this right now.
You can't.
Did I hit on something? Beef is laughing and put his head down. They are doing something. They are doing something.
You nailed something so amazing right there. And we cannot say anything, but you guys are going to find out soon.
It's going to be a big money maker for My Sox Summer on his website.
No, you're going to enjoy it, and I think a lot of people are enjoying it. It's going to go cross gender too. It's not just a male thing. It's a very female thing too. So there's going to be some stuff that goes out that people are going to enjoy. Trust me. Yes,
I'm super pumped about
this. This is something I wanted to do in his first run with the White Sox, and he got traded in 2016, so he couldn't do it. So it got shelved. But the best thing about shelves sometimes is this can come back.
Right.
And so like I redesigned something and it's coming back. So yeah, get ready. Get ready.
No, I'm absolutely.
We'll comp you.
That first of all, Ed knows this from his time in radio, and I do as well. That's an amazing tease right there.
Oh, that's
doesn't it? Just it's an amazing tease. In fact, we're gonna wrap up the show with that amazing tease because my show's only a half hour and we're at the end of it. Go. But I mean, that's an absolutely incredible tease. I look forward to getting back into the ballpark. I look forward to talking baseball with you guys. I look forward to sitting in the Goose Island section on the other side of the waterfall and waving to you. And while somebody brings in my drinks.
Your dad sits with us and talks to us.
He does.
Not you.
He likes you guys.
Yep.
He does. He likes you guys. So, but I look forward to all of us getting together very, very soon, and I can't wait for that day. And I also, though, look forward to what the 108 has in store for when the season begins and when they finally can get back into the stands, because I think it's something you're going to be watching for on the television, or, I guarantee you they pop up early on because the Sox are going to be so excited to show fans. And these guys, you've been doing this section now for a long time. This has become a cult thing amongst White Sox fans. I love it. Ed loves it. We're excited about it. I can't wait to see what happens. So, Teresi E, Beef Loaf, My Sox Summer, I want to say thank you very much for coming on Sox in the Basement.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thanks
out, man.
All right, and this show will continue because now I'm going to pour myself a beer and join their show. And I get to swear on that show. I'm dropping all the F-bombs, all of them.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.